Today I'm going to show you how to sketch out the eye. So the first thing we're going to do is I'd like you to draw out a really light circle. Now if you struggle to draw a circle, you might want to watch one of my previous YouTube videos that I did last year to show you how to hold the pencil, how to get nice light lines, how to use sketchy lines, not to push too hard, because we're probably going to rub out part of this circle soon. So nice light circle. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take a nice curved line, okay, from over here, a little bit like a rainbow. We're going to cut off the top of the circle, because this is the iris, this is the coloured part of our eye, and if you look into a mirror now, you'll see that you can't actually see the whole of your iris at the same time. So you have your top eyelid and your bottom eyelid, and unless you're opening your eyes really wide like you're in shock, you can't actually see the whole circle at the same time. Either the top or the bottom will be hidden under one of the lids. Okay, so we're going to draw this top line, slight curve to it, and we're going to cut off the top of that circle. So we're going to be rubbing that out. Okay, so we're going to take that curve all the way down like this. Alright, so that's going to be the top of the eye. Then here, this is the inside of your eye, which is nearest your nose, and we're going to draw the tear duct. So this is where the tears come out of. So we're just going to do this slightly curved shape here, okay, for the tear duct there. And then we're going to do a curve here, and this curve is actually going to touch the bottom of the circle, okay, like this. So we're going to take a look at this, decide if we like the shape, and this is where we might adjust it. So this is where we have to draw so lightly so that we have the option of adjusting it if we want to. So I'm going to now rub out the top of the circle, because we don't need that anymore. Just going to take a little look at my shape. I think it's a bit too long here. So we're always, as we draw, we are always going to be adjusting. Okay, that's why we draw so lightly. So we're never going to draw it perfectly first time. I'm going to keep making these little adjustments until we're happy with the shape. Okay, so something like that. So you can see it's kind of like an oval shape, a little bit like an almond shape, maybe a little bit of a lemon. You can keep adjusting it till you're happy with it. And we'll have the tear duct in there, and we've got the basic shape now. Okay, now this is the iris, we need the pupil. So the pupil is the black circle in the centre of the eye. Now we're going to draw that very lightly. Again, it needs to be round. If we don't get this round, it's not going to look like an eye. So if you're drawing a big eye, you could actually find something circular to draw around if you want to, just to practice, or just simply take a pencil and practice making tiny little circles on the page first. It's always good to practice. So if you look at how I'm practicing here, I'm doing lots of curves on one side like a C, and then I'm doing a backwards C. Lots and lots of light lines like this, just trying to practice my circles. Okay, when you're happy with that, you can put your circle in like this. Now what we're going to add now, because we're going to try and make this eye look realistic, is I'm going to rub out a little bit of that pupil. I'm actually going to draw in another little circle here. Now this is going to be the highlight. So our eyes are always wet with tears. When we blink, we wet our eyes again. And because they're wet, they're going to reflect light, and they're going to reflect images. So we've got to make them look alive. So we need to have a little bit of highlight on there so that they do look alive. Okay, so we're gonna use that later to create the highlight. So what we've drawn so far is a circle. We've drawn a semicircle, a curved line over the top, cutting off the top of that circle. Then we've got this curved area here, which is where your tears come out of, your tear duct. And then the bottom curve, slight curve going up, is on the bottom of the circle. Then we've drawn a smaller circle inside for the pupil, and then we've drawn another small circle which crosses the pupil. like that and cuts the corner off, and that's going to be our highlight. Okay, now we've got the basic shape, we can start to do some shading. So I'm going to push really, really hard with my pencil now for the pupil. So this is really black, so we can really go for it. Okay, normally we start off really pale, but for the pupil we're going to go super dark, and it's really important that we don't lose the shape of the pupil, so we want to keep that curve going like that. Okay, and we're going to obviously not go over our little highlight circle. So we've started off and we've got our pupil really jet black. Now the iris is obviously different colours, so we're drawing in black and white here, so what we have to do is show the different shades. Now if you look at your iris in a mirror, you'll see that it is darker on the outside of the iris here. Okay, and as it disappears underneath that top lid, there's also going to be a shadow. But we also have some lines coming out from just under the pupil as well. So there's lots and lots of tiny little lines and details on the eye, and it's really nice if we can get that going. So I'm going to start off by shading lightly at first on the outside of the curve, and it's really important that you keep that curve. So there's no point shading and losing that nice curve. So we're going to start off shading underneath there, so that's going to be quite flat because it's gone under the eyelid, but it's a bit darker, and again darker around here. Now I'm not creating a line, what I'm doing is just creating some darker tone. Okay, so it's a bit flatter here, and it's curved here, and it's curved here. Now what I can do, now I've got the basic darkness on the outside, I'm going to now flick in with my pencil, and I want to flick in with varying lines, so some are longer, some are shorter, and I want them to head towards the centre. So they're always coming from the outside in. So I might have to move my hand round or turn my piece of paper so that I'm flicking in from the outside. Okay, can you see that? Now as I'm flicking around here, I have to be careful because I don't want to go over my highlight. Okay, so all the way around the circle, flicking from the outside into the middle. So if your hand doesn't like to go around a certain way, just move the piece of paper like this until you're happy, and keep moving the pencil round. Get some different details in there. So some areas you can go a bit darker, particularly near the lid because of the shadow. And then also, if you want to, very carefully, you could cut to a few little lines coming out from the centre as well. So from the pupil, a few little lines coming out like that. Don't make it too dark, those ones, because it will get confused and you'll lose your lovely circle. You'll lose your lovely shape of the pupil if you go a bit crazy. So just a tiny, tiny amount coming out like that. You can see how that shading is starting to build up now. Okay, now it's important that we don't just leave this bit of the eye just flat looking, but it's also important that we don't go too crazy on this because we look like we've got a black eye. So we're going to now push a little bit harder with the pencil on that top lid. Okay, so we're creating a little bit of darkness there, and what we can do very lightly is do a tiny bit of shading like that, because your eyeball is round, so we want to show that the eyeball is going round in the eye socket. So we do need a little bit of shading. Now I have something here called a smudge stick, which you can buy like a pack of 5 of them off Amazon or anywhere really, Hobbycraft, and these are really good for shading. So if you do have one, you can blend in your shading a little bit like this. Okay, so we're going to do that on the bottom as well. I'm going to take off a little bit there. I don't want so much. So I'm using a 3B pencil here, so it's quite smudgy and it's quite dark. I wanted to use a darker pencil so you could see it on the video, but sometimes it goes too dark. So you just have to make these adjustments. I'm going to do a little bit of shading around the base of the tear duct as well. You can see how it's starting to look a bit more 3D. Now I'm going to darken the bottom lid now as well. Okay, you can see it's starting to take shape, and if you want to now, you can sort of darken any areas down which might not be as dark as you want them to be. So particularly here, I always darken right here where that iris goes underneath the lid, and right here just starts to really make the eye look quite real. Now we have the option, if you want to, some of you, I'd like you to stop right there because I don't want you to ruin it by going crazy with this. Some of you, if you're feeling delicate with your drawing, you might like to put in a top lid here. Okay, that's the eye socket there. And again, you can use your smudge stick if you have one, or finger. Okay, finger works really well, particularly if you're using a soft pencil. So if you're using a 2B, 3B, 4B pencil, you can smudge a lot easier. If you're using an HB pencil, it will smudge, but it won't smudge as much. Now the other thing we can do, this is where it can go really wrong, so you might like to just watch this bit and decide whether to do it, is we could add eyelashes. Okay, now the eyelashes, you'll find this is the centre of the eye where it's nearest the nose. As you come away from it, the eyelashes get thicker and longer here, but they're not thick and long really here. So what we're going to do is flick. You really do have to get a flick. If you draw an eyelash like this, whoop, they don't look so good. Okay, so you have to flick, you have to give it a bit of a curve, and you have to, when you flick, you want to release the pressure with your hand. So you're going to touch the page at the start and then flick up. Okay, like this, bit of a curve. Okay, and you can, sometimes your eyelashes don't sit perfectly, so they might crisscross over each other. Okay, as you come to the center of the eye here, they start to almost look like they're going the other way. Okay, and they get lighter. Okay, and we're probably going to stop around there to make it look natural. Okay, you can then darken the ones nearest the far edge. Okay, and we can really darken down that lid as well, like that. Now with the bottom lid, we can, I've got all these extra drawings here, we can put in another line for the bottom lid, very lightly, stopping around there. And then what we want to do with this one is we're going to flick down. Okay, and again, now the bottom eyelashes are really small compared to the top eyelashes. Have a look in the mirror and you can see that. Okay, so they're much smaller and they're going to flick downwards, and again, as we come towards the center of the eye, they're going to get thinner. So they're going to thin out and then disappear. Okay, so again, you can put in some darker tones here, and then they can start to thin out. Okay, now I could honestly draw eyes for hours. I could keep adding to them and changing them and adding the detail, but I'm going to stop there so that you can have a go now. Okay, and you can see that the more shading we put on, the more realistic it gets. So let's go through this again. First of all, you're going to draw the circle and practice that first, as I did here. Then you're going to do the top lid, which looks a little bit like a rainbow, and we're going to cut the top of the circle, rub it out. Then we're going to draw the tear duct here, and then we're going to do the bottom curve, which touches the bottom of the circle there, and then comes up to meet it here. Then we're going to draw the pupil, but we're going to draw a tiny circle there, which is going to be the nice light spot in the eye, which we're not going to go over. Then we colour in the pupil. Then we start doing the dark shading around the outside of the iris. We flick in, and then we do a teeny tiny bit of shading in the white bit of the eye because we don't want it to look too dark. And a tiny bit of shading down here. And then we darken that line, darken this line. And then if we're feeling brave and we don't want to ruin it, we can put in the top lid, the eyelashes, flicking that way and then flicking that way. And then the bottom, we're flicking downwards and getting less and less. Okay, so go and have a go. I absolutely love drawing eyes. It's my favourite thing to doodle when I'm sat there doing nothing. And I hope you enjoy it. And I'll see you soon.